Ben, let's start with you, because you have written, is it in the Daily Telegraph?
It was in the Express.
The Express. A rather scathing attack on your old friends, Miriam. The end of the Tories.
Yeah, not my first attack.
You said, when I joined Reform UK, I declared my aim was to obliterate the Conservative Party. Yeah. I was not being vindictive, I was being sensible.
Yeah, so the Conservative Party, by its name and by its nature, portrays itself, and I hope Miriam won't contradict me on this, as a party that stands for conservative values, for the union of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, for the democratic unit that is the United Kingdom, the promotion of national interests, and so on. And actually, that's not what it is in practice. The Conservative Party has been hijacked by what I would call, for want of a better word, globalism, which is the case with the Labour Party too. You know, we refer often to the Labour Party as left and the Conservatives as centre-right or right-wing, but that is a misclassification. Actually, what you've got in Parliament at the moment are two bodies of people that largely believe in the globalist agenda. And what I mean by that is predominantly pro-EU, pro-governance through supranational institutions such as the UN, the EU, WHO, handing over pandemic management to the WHO, and also, frankly, an outright attack on what I would regard as British democracy. So the creation of so-called independent bodies. Blair kicked off this project, you know, giving, for example, the Bank of England its independence to start with, then giving Ofcom undue powers, in my view, to govern media. The Electoral Commission was created. The Office of Budget Responsibility was created, without which chancellors can't move forward. And so what you've got, effectively, is two parties that govern in a very similar way, in a fundamentally anti-British way, if you don't mind me saying so. And the vote for Brexit was a vote to get rid of all of that. And, you know, sorry,
No, I think a lot of viewers would agree with that. And the fact that the Conservative Party didn't roll back any of Blair's reforms, the fact that the Labour Party didn't oppose lockdowns or any of the COVID policies kind of confirms what you're saying is true. Yeah. But I suppose my question to you is, how can reform be different? And under a two-party system, essentially, with first past the post, can you actually break through and start to represent those voters in a meaningful way? Yeah,
so on the second point first, we have broken through. You know, for months, when I joined Reform UK, we were polling at 6%. When the general election kicked off, we were polling at 16%. And all the way until that point, people kept telling me, you're not going to win seats. You're just a spoiler. You're just a spoiler party. And I kept saying we would. And we did. We got 5 seats, which actually, from a political perspective, under first past the post, is seismic. But we came second in 98 seats to Labour. And that's also quite interesting. You know, it's Labour whose heels we're licking at. And it's because people in this country, Labour voters in this country, are small C Conservatives. They believe in the United Kingdom. And so I think under first past the post, Reform UK will cut through.
OK, Nigel Nelson, Uni Party, same people, different colours, same agenda, behest to all the same globalist
organisations. That's where the voters are. I mean, the whole thing is that the whole point about Britain is it tends to be moderate, it's centrist. We haven't had revolutions in the past because of that. So when Ben talks about centrist parties being anti-British, they're not anti-British at all. That is where the voters mostly lie, and that's the kind of government they're after.
Can I just pick you up on that? I mean, some would argue the current agenda, whether it's Conservative or Labour, is anti-British. We're giving billions and billions to Ukraine, not knowing when it's going to end. It's a bottomless pit of money. Sir Keir Starmer announced some tens of millions to some African project the other day. The foreign aid budget is out of control. Some would say it is anti-British.
Well, I mean, taking those two things...
Open borders. How can you be pro-British with open borders? You have to have borders to define your territorial integrity.
I knew you'd get onto immigration eventually.
No, it's not just immigration.
Isn't it the case, Nigel, that actually, yes, Britain is moderate and centrist, but the centre has moved so much? I mean, can you imagine saying 20 years ago that open borders was a good policy, or huge amounts of debt was a good policy?
Open borders isn't a good policy. Well, who's advocating open borders?
But now
that's what we've got.
Immoderate if you believe in controlling immigration, or at least in certain quarters it is. So isn't it the case that the centre has moved rather than the British people?
Well, no, I mean, first of all, as far as the new government's concerned, they're still about controlling immigration. All they're saying is that the Tory methods of doing it were unworkable and ridiculously expensive. So they have a different way of doing that. No, we probably never will stop the small boats coming across entirely, but we should be able to reduce them. And as far as the...
But we should stop them entirely. Nigel, it is the definition of the United Kingdom. The limit of our territorial waters marks where our country ends and France starts, and that needs physical enforcement. It's basic. The notion...
But what you want to do is actually drown people
No,
in the
I
channel
don't want to drown anyone.
By trying to turn the boats back to France.
I tell you what you're doing. Your policy guarantees continued death in the channel. Because by encouraging the trade, by not stamping down on it, by not stopping the boats, more and more people are going to come and more people are going to die. And, by the way, just let's be utterly clear on this. We are importing criminality into the UK by not enforcing our borders, and we are therefore allowing civil society in this country to be assaulted. And I call that uncivilised.
But the argument is not over whether or not we should enforce our borders. We both agree with that. The question is how we enforce the borders. And at the moment we've got a system where we've introduced the Illegal Migration Act, and all that's done is stored up 100,000 people who can't stay in this country but can't leave it either. So you need to break that kind of logjam so we can send people back who need to go back.
Labour's policy is simply to speed up the asylum application process for that 100,000 people.
Absolutely right.
And then give them settled status. That's it.
Ben, can I ask you a question? Nigel alluded to it there, and I'm just going to hit you with it.
Hit me.
Your comments about drowning quote-unquote migrants in the Channel with Julia Hartley-Brewer. Do you think you were axed from reform because of that? Do you think maybe they saw you as a bit of a liability?
That conversation was a hypothetical argument where I allowed Julia Hartley-Brewer to paint an unrealistically stupid picture, and I did what no politician should do, which is give her the gotcha moment she was seeking.
So do you think that Nigel thought because of that you were maybe a little bit of a liability, if you don't mind me saying?
No, not at all.
No. Do you not connect the two instances?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, it's absolutely clear if you watch the video. Julia Hartley-Brewer was saying, a bunch of people come over in a dinghy, you try and stop them, and they get out a knife, stab their dinghy, all end up in the drink. And I said, well, one of the things you could do is rescue them by giving them another boat. She said, well, what if they stab that boat and end up all in the drink again? And actually, at that point, I should have stopped her and said, stop talking rubbish. These people are not suicidal.
But I saw that interview, and what you did say was that it's their responsibility. If they end up drowning in the Channel, they're the ones who've taken the responsibility to make the crossing in the first place.
But that's true, isn't it? Most people would agree with that.
Certainly.
If you're going to risk your life crossing the busiest shipping lanes in the world.
You're absolutely right. They're taking their lives in their hands to cross the Channel.
But the point she was trying to make...
But you were talking about sending them back to France.
The point she was trying to make was that there's no mechanism by which you can physically stop them in the Channel. And that point is fundamentally flawed. The Belgians do it. They have reduced illegal launches of dinghies from their shores by 92% by having a force dedicated to physically intercepting dinghies and requiring people to go back to Belgium.
I think we should probably move on to a news story. This is supposed to be the news review. Andy Murray is going to retire after the Olympics. What do you think to that, Ben?
Well, I mean, everyone's had their day, haven't they? And he's had a fantastic career. He's played some superb tennis. He's done what lots of British sportsmen do, which is take us to the point of unbridled optimism only to dash our hopes, and then on occasion also delivered. And I think he's been a fantastic sportsman. He hasn't been perhaps the best unionist, in terms of his belief in the United Kingdom.
But he was only joking about that.
Was he only joking?
I'm a massive Andy fan. It was during a football tournament, and some journo said, are you going to support England if Scotland get knocked out? He said, nah, of course not. He was only joking.
Okay.
But people,
fair enough, I forgive him.
People really attacked him for it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the guy's 37. It's around about the time that you should retire from a sport like tennis. I can understand him doing so. It's a great pity he didn't get the chance to play that last doubles tournament at Wimbledon. But at least he's going on to the Olympics. After that, I think it's absolutely right. He should put his feet up.
Yeah, I love Andy Murray. When he lost the Wimbledon final against Federer, I think it was 2012, he came back 2 weeks later to beat, was it Djokovic or Federer? Sorry, Federer again at the Olympic Games final, won gold, came back the year later, won Wimbledon. I just think, he's a great British institution. Hero.
Yeah, we all agree on that one.
Nice.
It's a good place to end the discussion.
Yeah, thank you. You'll be back shortly. Maybe we'll reignite this small boats argument because it's feisty indeed.